Welcome, everyone. This is May Bush, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's live stream. We're here to talk about charting your path to success, achieving your career goals faster and more easily. And I'm joined here by my good friend and colleague, Catherine Claydon, who I'll introduce in just a moment. I'll introduce you properly, Catherine. I just introduced you, but not the full 9 yards. So let's just make sure that people are coming in and able to see us. Can you pop into the comments section where you're joining us from? Because I am joining from a different location, as you'll see, from my usual studio. I am on a business trip here in Arizona, in Phoenix. It's quite a bit hotter than my usual outside of London. And Catherine, where are you joining us from?
From London. I've got to figure out how to do it in the comments, but I'm sure I'll figure this out
Oh,
in a
no, you
moment.
don't have to. This is for everybody who's joining us live.
Ontario. Shelley from Ontario. Great.
Yeah, good to see you too, because Catherine is a Canadian.
That's right.
Wow, we've got Surrey, we've got Ohio. Good to see you, Craig. And I don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly, but I'm going to give it a go. Well, gosh, the year of living dangerously. Olawatu Meninu, I want to say good to see you as well, and apologies if I mispronounced your name. My heart was in a good place when I made the attempt. Great to see you, Patricia from New York, Iris from DC. This is fantastic. Welcome, all of you. And this is such a wonderful thing that you're joining us live to invest in yourself, invest in your career. Catherine and I like to say an investment in yourself is always going to pay off. It's never wasted. So really, really proud that you have chosen to join us and honored. And we are joining you at mid-year, which is one of the most underrated times of the year in my experience. You know, everybody gives January that big window of, wow, this is when we set goals and we really take a fresh look and make a plan. But actually, mid-year is at least as important, sort of like a big giant circus tent. And if they don't have a pole in the middle, so if one end is January, the other end is December, then you need a tent pole in the middle to really make sure that your whole tent is staying up, i.e. your career is going the right direction. And that's why we are wanting to do this live stream now here in June to help you with your career, help you with your career planning, make sure you're on course. So let me introduce Catherine properly now. Catherine has had a decades-long career in financial services. She and I are similar in that regard, and primarily in her case at Goldman Sachs. She rose from entry level to managing director, a very successful career, and now serves on several boards as a non-executive director. And Catherine is a chairman of the BBC Pension Fund, which is a major organization. Now, the fun part is Catherine and I have worked together for years delivering leadership and career development programs. And I know Catherine is equally committed as I am to share our experiences, both coming up the ranks and as senior decision makers, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to help you and others succeed in your careers faster and more easily. So I want to say welcome, Catherine. I don't know if there's anything you want to add. You know, I think you're awesome.
No, nothing at all. I'm keen to get going. This is a great topic, and I know we both have a lot of thoughts on this and how important it is. So absolutely, we can start.
Fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about being strategic in your career, and more specifically, career planning and creating a career game plan for yourself. And this can seem really stressful and even impossible when you're already so busy with your day-to-day and what I call the tyranny of the to-do list. I know that's a real thing for me, and hopefully not for you, but in case it is. So we want to unpack that for you in a way that's really easy to get some golden nuggets. And that's what we wish for you today, to get some nuggets that you can take and apply and find helpful. And before we get started, I'd like you to share in the chat what career stage you're at, because that'll help Catherine and I make sure that our remarks are hitting home. So type in whether you're early, mid, or senior in your career. So are you early, mid, or senior? And that's just your own view, and there's no actual number of years cut off. So are you early, mid, or senior in your career? So let's see who we have here. Oh, we got to wait for a minute. There's a lag time between when you type in and when the technology allows the bits and bytes to reach us. Okay, so I see we've got mid, we have senior, Sandeepa's senior, Allison's mid, along with Emily, Daniel senior, Samantha senior, Patricia. Wow, we got a lot of senior people here, Catherine. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I actually saw, and someone I think put transitioning midlife. It's really interesting because May and I also talk a lot about how you can, if you will, get to a senior point in one career and decide you're going to transition to a new career where actually you're effectively starting again in some respects. So, all of these points, I think, hopefully you'll find what our observations are relevant, frankly, at whatever stage you're at. But this is helpful for us in terms of getting.
Yeah, Oliver is an example of that career change, senior and old career, early and new. And Iris making a really good point. How do you even categorize yourself when you've taken a career break, right? Yeah, so awesome. Good. So we have a really good blend. Then the second question before we get started to help prime us is how are you feeling about your game plan for your career? Do you feel great about it? So, or maybe you don't have one yet. So great, so, don't have one, or use whatever words you want.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting, let me just share with you how today is going to roll. So on today's call, Catherine and I will talk for about 20, maybe 30 minutes or so. And once we get going, who knows? It's all valuable though. And we're going to share our real life experiences to help you achieve your career goals faster and more easily. And then we'll also do some live Q&A. So as we talk, feel free to type your questions into the chat, and we'll take them at the end. And when you do that, make sure you type the word question, ideally in all caps. Then so question dash and then your question, so that my team can easily spot the question among other chat comments. And then later in the call, I'll be sharing a solution that gives you a way to create your own career roadmap using a time-tested structure and process, along with support and accountability to help you get it done, even if you're super busy, even if you're not yet sure exactly what you want as your next career step. And then I want to invite you to be sure to stay till the end, because I have something really special to share for you. So let's go back to the chats. Let's see, how are people feeling about their career plans? What do you see in there, Catherine?
Well, I think a lot of people sort of see, it seems like a lot of people have some kind of a plan, if you will, but they're putting it in the so-so. That for the most in most cases, I guess they're probably looking for some tips of, okay, am I doing it the right way? Are there other things? Seeing some interesting things, trying to reinvent. So, how do you deal with that when you're actually looking for a more significant, perhaps shift in some way from what you're doing? And I think Samantha's saying, I'm waiting for events to unfold before I can cement my plan. And that might be absolutely right, because there's some key things that are going to be the trigger that will help you decide which way you navigate. But also sometimes you'll have people, and I was certainly one of these sometimes, where I was just kind of going along, and now, had I had a more clear-cut plan, I might have actually made different choices along the way. So it depends a little bit. I'm not sure what Samantha necessarily meant by that, but I'm going to also jump on the second meaning, perhaps, that might relate to some people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you'll hear later,
I like Oliver's crossing my fingers and giving gratitude is my game plan. That's good. Crossing. I like that. It's good.
Exactly. I'm familiar with that one. I called it hope.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Let's get started then, as you say, Catherine. Why don't we start from just the a starting question of how planful do people really need to be to have a successful career? And let's talk about how planful you have been and how did you think about career planning? And then I can share on my end too.
Well, I'll say a couple of thoughts. Just first, when we talk about career planning, I should clarify that what we don't mean. I don't know anyone who started at 22 and said, "Okay, by 25 I'm going to be this, and by 28 I'm going to be that, and and then I'm going to be an MD, and then I'm going to be CEO, and then I'm going to be a chairman." It doesn't work obviously like that. And so when we talk about planning, we don't run into lots of people who say, "I don't really know what I want to do yet," even at quite established phases. I don't know where my next point is. That's okay. We're not talking about planning specific roles for much of your career. Sometimes it's a different kind of planning. But what I would say is, in the earlier stages of my career, and I think May, you'll relate to this, it was really just a question of kind of doing whatever was in front of me, doing it well, hopefully. But I wasn't really thinking about where is this heading, other than I just wanted to do it well, have some praise, and assume that things would work out for me. And it wasn't until, I would say, well into the sort of mid part of my career, and it was actually when I was going for managing director. I had a really good established business that I had developed and built, and I was in the running now to become a managing director. And I had this fantastic boss who was an expert at career planning and being strategic about his career. And he taught me so much. And to be honest with you, I had never thought of it in that way. I kind of just thought, if you did a good job, eventually you'll get recognized, eventually you'll get promoted. And it was massively eye-opening for me to have him pull me back and say, no, 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 this is how you have to think about this tactically. Being good and making, having a profitable business and building that is absolutely necessary. But let me tell you, it's not sufficient. And nor is it sufficient that necessarily the right people will know about what you're doing. So, stage one is, even in that situation where you have a clear goal, at that point, you must actually at that point have clear plans. I'm going to hand it back to you for a second, May, but as you know, I sort of think of these in three different phases. One, when you've got a clear goal and it's within sight, planning.
Yep.
Two is, if you will, when you're not in a good position. Either you are not happy with where you are, or you've fell into what I call a bear trap, and you're trying to get out of it, or you're stuck. You're stuck and you're not doing what you should be doing. That's a great time to pull back and have a kind of strategic plan. We can talk a bit about what that involves. And then finally, when you're in this phase of everything's going kind of fine, but I don't have a particular goal and I don't know how to think about it, I think of now how I pull back and think about that strategically as well. So I would have those three different scenarios. We all will fall into one of them. And in all cases, now I've learned how to apply kind of a structured plan and be diligent about having some, strategy time for myself over the course of the year. But May, let me hand it back to you, because I know you've got some thoughts on
Yeah,
this.
well, this is so great to hear about yours, because I didn't know you way back then when we were both coming up through the ranks in different organizations. And I love that there are those three different times or categories, right? When you know where you're going and how do you get there, where you're unhappy where you are, need a new direction, what do you do about that? And then when everything's going fine, it's really easy to not even think about the
Coast.
plan and just
Yeah,
kind
to
of,
coast. And that's wrong.
yeah, that's one of the most dangerous times, actually,
Mhm.
because that's when
Mhm.
you can miss a lot of signs. So in my case, I, in my early part of my career, I think my plan, okay, here was what my plan was. My plan was two things. Number one, to work really hard, do an excellent job, and I just believed that the organization would recognize and reward me. And I got lulled into a sense of complacency, because for the first few years that actually happens. You're kind of in the pastoral care portion, and you don't really have to fend for yourself. You're like those little birds in the nest, and the mom and dad are feeding you, and it's all going to turn out well. But then you get kicked out of the nest, but you don't really know it. I was figuratively no longer in the nest, but I thought I was still in the nest. And then that's when it kind of dawned on me, as I was watching others get really great opportunities, watching others get promoted even ahead of me. That's when I realized I really needed to pull back and do some of that planning. Um, and I'll tell you, we can talk in a minute about what my plan looked like at that time. It was useful, but not the shining armor plan that I probably needed. So that's how it was for me. And I also think of it in 3 stages. So you had 3 different um,
Mhm.
categories
Yeah.
of situation.
Circumstances where having a plan, is either critical, or you might be lulled to think it's not, but it actually can be done and should be done. So yeah, that's how I think of it.
Absolutely. And then I'd add to that, I totally agree with you. I'd add to that that I think there's also stages of your career. So when you're really early in your career, it's I mean, you want to have a plan, but you need to leave things a little bit open, because sometimes you don't even know what you want. And I never finished my second point before about my planning or lack thereof. I Part of my career plan, it was super simple. It was I wanted to get promoted to the next level, whatever level I was at. It was my level plus one. So it was just really super simple, but I never really stopped to think, oh, do I actually want to do that? Do I actually want to be in that position? I just kind of blinkered like a little racehorse with the blinkers on, and just going for my level plus one. But anyway, I think of it as early stage career, mid stage, and then senior stage. I think where it gets really super critical is in the middle and then senior stages, to really have a time to step back and be strategic, because that's when you're kind of expected to own your own career path. And yet a lot of us, I know me in particular, I was waiting for somebody else to do it for me, and that's really dangerous.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this idea of the plan,
Mhm.
and maybe we can talk about what constitutes a plan. You already really well articulated, Catherine, what a plan is not, right? We're not talking about setting out these very
Clear-cut
specific.
rules or something like that. Obviously, circumstances change, opportunities change. For me, a plan is something that helps me, I kind of identify opportunities and avoid kind of bear traps, right? And having a plan, and the starting point, of course, is having some sense on a longer term basis, 5-year, 10-year, of what would good look like? What do you want? And for me, I was like you, May. I used to just kind of whatever the next promotion is, but at a certain point, that actually ended up biting me somewhat, because I was moving up the ranks, and then suddenly, my boss at the time, my very good boss, was moving, and he wanted me to take his job, which was definitely a promotion, but it was in a different field. It was covering corporates. I had been working with investors. And, the little kind of rat in me that goes wherever the cheese is just sort of said, of course I want that job. And of course, what had happened was, I realized as I was into it, I didn't actually have the relevant background knowledge. I didn't have the particular interest in this client base. And I was, my competitors, of course, are my peers who are, this is what they've done, they've always done, and they're naturally very good at. And I realized I hadn't been very strategic. And what ended up happening was I ended up having to take a step or so back to get back into the field I actually was most interested in, which was dealing with investors. So, and that was just one aspect. I think what I've realized over my career was, characterizing what from a career standpoint where do I want to be in kind of 5 years, 10 years, maybe even longer. And some of those things were, I wanted it to be intellectually challenging, not too challenging that I can't do it, but challenging where I'm getting stretched and I'm learning. I wanted it to be something where I was contributing, that I could actually see somehow how I was making, some people's lives better, hopefully some other institutions' lives better, how that was working. I was getting some recognition, for the people, I felt proud of what I was doing, and I got some sort of positive recognition. And that, that had a bearing on what kind of environment I wanted to be in. And then there was some remuneration targets, etc. Over the years, I slightly pulled away a bit from having specific title focus, although interestingly, that ended up coming anyway. You know what I mean? If you set that aside and just focus on kind of doing stuff that you enjoy doing, that you're good at, etc., I often found the titles and the opportunities came at some point. But I guess the point of that was when I framed that and when I defined that, it started to become easier to see which opportunities did I really have to throw everything at. And I will give you one. You know, because when I moved to be doing more non-executive work, more board work, and I was getting approached for various jobs on corporate boards, on investment trust boards, which is closed-end fund boards over here. And what I really wanted to do is get onto pension fund boards. And at that time, there weren't that many independent roles. They were very hotly contested. And I didn't have the obvious background, if you will. A lot of people from consulting backgrounds or investment management backgrounds, and I had come from this kind of banking background effectively. But an opportunity came up to work with, like, it was Unilever's investment committee at the time. And for me, because I had sort of defined, I had really thought about what are the sort of things I want to do. And one of them was to get much more involved with pension funds, where I really felt I had some value to add and where I thought I'd be good at it. When I went for that role, not only did I kind of do all, I threw everything at it. I did all of the research. I talked to as many people as I could about the people involved, the organization, etc. And I'm not embarrassed of this, but just to say, I wouldn't do this all the time. And some people probably would think this was obnoxious, but I wanted this job. And when I went in for the interview, I kind of slapped down at the end of the sheet where I had listed 15 of the top thought leaders and players, if you will, when I players, big hitters, if you will, in the pension world, who knew me, who had worked with me, who were happy to be a referral for me. And I basically, there's their name, there's their email address, there's their phone number. They're happy to take your call, and every single one of them would back me for this job. And
wow.
Well, and as I said, I think people sort of raised their eyes a little bit because they thought that's a bit pushy, or so that's a bit self-promoting. But for me, everything hinged on I wanted to get that, and I did get that, and it led to a lot of other things. So I think by defining where I wanted to get to, the fact that opportunity came up, it could have come up a year later. I can't control when the opportunities come. But by having a clear idea of where you might characteristics of where you want to get to, you're much more likely to be able to say no to things. And I think some of the best choices I've made over the years, now I've realized, have not been the things I've said yes to. It have been the things that I could have done that other people might have said, you should do, that I've actually said, no, that's not going to be part of the plan. Actually, that's going to take me on a detour. That's going to get me into a cul-de-sac because what I want is here. So anyway, me, I'll keep talking. I'm going to pause a bit and pass it back to you a bit, but that's hopefully that's a little bit clear. Starting point, characterize what you want your career to look like in 5 to 10 years. I'll come back to the more micro steps of having the plan between then and the next 12 months. But the starting point's got to be, how do I see myself reputationally, from an integrity standpoint, kind of organizations I want to be affiliated with, all of that. So, and be realistic about your own skill set and limits, your experience limits too. You don't want to jump into something where you're not necessarily going to be successful, right? So you want to basically have it in the right order where you build the experience so that you will be successful when you get to that point.
Yeah, sort of pave the path. If you can see where you want to end up, you can create that glide path toward it. I love that, Catherine. And what you're really making me think of is some of the reasons why it's so important to have this kind of stepping back, thinking about it, and having that longer term view, and then we'll get to the nearer term view, so that you can have an outline or a plan and where you want to go. Because one of the things that tended to happen to me was I tended to go to where the cool kids were going. And right? What is that?
Or where the money was? It could be where the cool kids are. What's the most prestigious? Or where's the money? Where's the title? All of those things, everyone's gets sucked into. Surely that's what you must go for.
Exactly. And sometimes that's exactly the wrong thing. So I do want to underscore what you say no to is really important. And I think was it Steve Jobs, or several very, very successful business people have said that they're more proud of, or equally proud of, the things that they said no to as the things that they said yes to. So that's really important. And one of the things that's really has been hard for me to say no to, and it's only now that I'm getting in touch with really understanding what I want and what I'm really good at and meant to do, is these really well-meaning people around you.
Mhm.
In fact, even people who love you and you love, or these senior mentors, they all have an opinion, but they're not you, right? And they can say, "Oh, yeah, you really ought to do this." So you were talking about board roles, and as I was getting very senior, um, I started thinking about what do I do next, and so many people were encouraging me to get board roles. Women, they want more women on boards. This is perfect for you, et cetera, et cetera. But I, having been on a nonprofit board, discovered that I'm really not, at least not yet ready to be that person who is, sorry, I'm just trying to turn my light on here. Not yet ready to be that person who is the non-executive. I still
You're
wanted to
very
do.
executive. You're super exec You're gonna always be executive, May. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I may never be cut out to be a board member because that's all, even though it was the sexy thing to do, it was the expected thing to do for somebody of my seniority and my experience. And I'd get to hang around with some really, really cool, important bigwig people. Yeah, it just didn't suit the things that I like to do. I like to talk about I like to do things, and I like to expand opportunities. I'm really not really that great at looking at risk or governance. It's just
Mhm.
not my happy place. So I probably would not have been as happy or successful as a board member as others, including you, have been. So you really want to make sure that you're listening to your own voice and not just the voice of others. You need to be able to, that's one of the big benefits. Actually, we should talk about the benefits of having a game
Mhm.
plan. So that to me is one of the benefits of having a game plan. Then you become really clear about,
As
as you
things
said,
come, things are going to come at you,
yeah,
opportunities or, et cetera. You'll also see risks, things that'll come up where you think, ooh, this could actually derail me. I'm going to take this very seriously. When I was building my business and
yeah,
knowing that any kind of problem with respect to the governance around it was going to be was going to be highlighted potentially. So I needed to, but I would also say, look, there are lots of times where we just lose energy, right? I mean, it's hard to keep going, especially if you're in a difficult situation. You're not necessarily happy with where you're at right now. And one of the benefits, I think, of having a plan, both the longer term plan of this is what my vision is, and then the tactical plan of, okay, so what am I going to do, today? And it gets right down to, if I've got a 5-year plan, I know where I want to be in a year's time. It breaks down to almost what I do today. It helps me form the time blocks
yes,
today of, or maybe over the course of a week, I need to to allocate some time to reach out and build bridges with these people. So much as I could be really busy all week and not do that, I know that having a relationship with these people or building some bridges with them is actually an important thing. So I've got to schedule that in. So I think it helps a lot with scheduling and
yes,
making sure that you actually do the stuff that's important but not urgent. And then secondly, I think it also helps with keeping momentum, keeping the faith a bit, because I've certainly had time. We all have times where we sort of feel lethargic and we feel down, and to know that, okay, at least I've got a plan for this week. There are 5 things I'm going to do that are going to move me forward, even if I don't see it in short order. And that's the other aspect, I think, of having a plan, of just having some realistic short-term milestones that aren't getting the promotion. It's, I'm going to make a phone call to this person who I need to actually talk to, or I'm going to sign up for this course, or I'm going to put together the one-page summary that explains kind of what I'm doing, so that when I'm meeting people, I can, in a really succinct way, explain how I'm qualified actually for this particular role. That's the kind of thing that keeps you going.
absolutely. And when I think about it, the other thing that it helps you do, because we talked about number one, having this whatever version of career game plan you have, it helps you arrive at success however you define success, not how others are defining it, right? Because it
Yeah.
lets you say no, it lets you take the steps. I'd say that the another thing it does for you is it helps you when you've taken a step back, like you described and thought about that broad, what parameters you're really after, what are your real goals, then it really helps you articulate your what and why
Yeah.
to others as well, because you've gotten so crystal clear about it. And I know some people were saying that they're in career transitions. That's a point in time when you really need to be able to articulate who you
Mhm.
are, what value you bring, and why, what's your mission and purpose. So I think it can be really helpful and clarifying for that. And I also think it's just, as you said, helpful to track your progress and stay motivated and keep going,
Yeah.
especially when times
Absolutely.
are difficult. Yeah. And it helps you, it really helped me to carve out the time and justify it to myself, because I
Mhm.
was always saying, I need to be working. I was the model employee, right? Really, really hard working. And so if you're the least bit achiever, like that could be you too. So this is why you have to really make sure that
Yeah.
you're looking after yourself, and your plan can help you do that.
Absolutely. And actually, you know, you also recognize that having a career plan, and focusing a little bit on yourself might sound very selfish, might sound quite self-absorbed, but I've come to a different view of it over the years, which is, I'm not doing my organizations or my clients any favors by kind of punching below my weight. So in a sense that if I'm capable of, you know, leading people, building businesses, you know, having a voice at the table and sitting at a board table where I actually am engaging, and I could add a lot of value from that, then it's actually, um, then the onus is on me to make sure that I'm maximizing my own productivity, right? So I don't know if I don't know if this resonates with anybody, but I used to always feel a little bit. I'm Canadian, so we're modest people, and feeling that, you know, spending a lot of time thinking about my own career seemed quite self-indulgent. When in fact, I once I flipped it and said, no, no, this is for my clients or this is for my company, I was able to do it. And I will also say, May, this whole thing about sort of thinking strategically, and by the way, I now do it not just for my career, but kind of for my life. I mean, I set aside time, um, once a year and then once a month to just kind of where am I on various key elements of, you know, what I'm trying to achieve. And it came from planning my business. And I'm sure you will relate to this, that being strategic about trying to build the business I was running at the time, of basically pulling back and saying, no, wait, you know, instead of getting into the weeds, who should be our biggest targets? What are our biggest, you know, benefits that we're bringing to those targets? Are we actually doing the right things? I think so many people don't spend enough time of just pulling back a bit and pulling back and looking at the big picture. And it was that discipline of doing with my business that I switched and said, okay, now let's, the business is myself and my career. What am I doing? How am I going to do that? So I think and the other benefit I think of doing that is that, there are many people we saw coming, you know, through the ranks who were very clever. They were bright, incredibly hardworking. But one of the things that held them back was that they weren't perceived as being strategic thinkers. They were
Mm,
doers, but they weren't necessarily the, you know, the you know, people couldn't see them as the general, you know, deciding which hill to go for. And
yeah,
one of the benefits of sitting back and doing that for your business, for yourself, is that you start to develop the terminology and the processes of, okay, here's the goal, here's the strategy, here's the tactics. And that's kind of, you know, defining those things and refining them as you go along, depending on how circumstances, is just a good way of thinking and a good way of being. And people, when they see that, they actually then start to think of you beyond perhaps what you've done to date. So,
absolutely. And this is another area where you remember you talked about three circumstances in which
mhm,
having a plan is important, right? This is that third circumstance where everything's going just fine. And that's exactly when, certainly in my career, and I've watched this in others, people just keep going as they've been going, working hard, being that go-to person for X, whatever that X is for you, and then missing out on being perceived as ready for the next level. And Shelley, I see in the comments, is saying, great way to say that, Catherine, punching below my weight. Yeah. So that can happen to the best of us. And it does happen to the best of us because we're trying to be the best, but we forget that we need to be looking out for the next step as well.
Well, I mean, May is going to talk eventually about the structure of how she approaches kind of a really structured framework for doing this. But you know, I was thinking that some of the things. Sorry, I'm having a mind block here for a second, May. I was just going to say something. I was going to say something critically important, and now it's just gone for a
Okay,
second.
well,
But
I'm sure it'll come back to you. So I'll
I
give
will
you a
come back.
chance to think of that. And it's that happens to the best of us too, attesting from my own experience. Um, but it is important to make sure that you are doing a plan, because I do remember looking back, and there would be certain people, and they would be guys. There were always guys, and that where they'd be on some panel and people go, well, how did you plan out your career? And they go, oh, well, I didn't, it just sort of all happened for me. And I don't believe that for a minute.
They're naturally strategic. They, you know, anyone who where things just happen for them, I can tell you that they have, just like some of us are more athletic than others. Some, no, I'm not one of those. Some people just naturally, they've got that, they already had the lens, right? They already had this sort of strategy lens. They were looking at, and the good news is that if you don't naturally think that way, it's very learnable. That's one thing I found. It didn't take me very long at all. Once my boss, who was one of those people where everything kind of worked for him, you know, once he explained to me how he tackled things, it was very easy. I've come back to what I was thinking, May.
Okay.
I mean, one of the, I sort of think of some specific tactics when you're in that phase where everything's fine, but you don't necessarily know clearly where you want to go next. I think a couple of things you want to do is thinking about how can what I'm doing, my expertise, my team, my whatever it might be useful in some other related area, and how can I slightly volunteer? And I'm thinking within an organization, it might be a case study where you say, you know what, we've actually had an interesting situation where we were dealing with certain lawyers and we found out, you know, this sort of approach to a court case, and I want to make sure everyone else actually understands this. And this is there's two things of that. One is you start becoming seen as a thought leader. One, you start becoming seen, full stop. You know,
Yeah.
more that you know people in other areas, there's no way that you can cover the whole ground of knowing all the different opportunities and ways that your particular set of expertise or business can be, productively used within your organization or by your clients, whatever. And therefore, one of the things you want to do is have this big network of people, light touch network, because we don't have infinite time, where they know you and they think, okay, if it's going to be something about corporate finance, May, I saw you recently come and you came and talked to the fixed income trading division about how this corporate finance deal worked, and you explained why it was relevant for us. I'm going to call you because I've got 3 ideas and I want to bounce it off you. That's how the magic happens, right? People start coming to you because you volunteered to go out to them and share something that might be useful to them. So those are little, when I'm in this situation where not much is going on, I try to think of ways to kind of take risks to get out there a little bit and build some new contacts, not with any particular agenda, but more just because the likelihood is that I'm going to start getting these new little lightning bolts of new ideas or new information coming to me that then sets up my next path.
Absolutely. And in these days, it's the old way of you join a big company, you work your way up through the ranks, you get the gold watch, you retire. I mean, that is long gone. And it's all so much flatter now. And it's about who you know, who knows you. How do you add value in a collaborative, collective way across different units, across different business lines? And that's where the value is. It's in the in-between spaces. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Catherine. I wonder if this would be a good time. You mentioned that I would share
Little bit an overview of the plan. Yeah.
an overview of how a career game plan that I've been using with my clients, and they found it to be really successful. And maybe my team can pop it up there. Yeah, there it is. So this is a way to systematically think about your career game plan. I call it a career success roadmap. And Catherine, you're exactly right. It starts with aspirations, whatever is 3 to 5 to 10 years from now, and then you figure out what your interim milestones you need to hit 12 to 18 months from now, and then you work back to the next 90 days and some very concrete action steps you can take. So it's just a very nice visual way to capture what you were talking about, Catherine, that would apply to anyone's career at any stage. And you would want to update this every 90 days. And Catherine, you do it every month. Sometimes, we get done with our 90 days objectives, and we need to modify those action steps. And, you need to create some new habits to help support you along the way. And then there's some things you need to say no to. And that's what the do later piece is.
Mhm.
So, I hope that's helpful. And thank you for sharing that, team.
Mhm.
And I want to pivot to questions shortly, but just in way of slightly summarizing here, I'm sure you'll agree that everything we talked about is great and super useful for your career. But if you're wondering about how to go about creating that career game plan, that career success roadmap, without having to spend hours on it when you're already so busy, then you're going to really love this. And I want to share this opportunity with you because next week I am running a free 5-day career mastery challenge to help you achieve your big career goals by creating your own career game plan. And the challenge was really successful when I ran in January. So now we're running it again to help you get what you want and deserve in your career, whether that's a promotion, whether that's a new career direction, better work-life balance, any number of aspirations you might have. And before I tell you how you can sign up for this free challenge and about the special opportunity to join as a VIP, let me share a little bit about how the challenge works. And each day of the challenge, 5 days, is dedicated to one part of that roadmap I just showed you. And you'll receive a daily short video training from me, taking you through exactly how to create your personal career game plan step by step. So day 1 is about your success goals. Day 2 is about your success milestones. Day 3 is about the accelerators to help you get there. Day 4 is about the specific tactical action steps you can take. And day 5 is about this success habits that can support you. And it'll only take you 30 minutes a day. And in just 5 short days, you'll come away with your finished, personalized career success roadmap. And you'll have clarity on your big career goals. Your confidence will be up to start taking specific action steps. And all of this is free. And I'd love for you to join. And we also have an awesome VIP experience where you get to join me live and backstage every day of the challenge for a special Zoom meeting where I'll go deeper into that day's topic and give you a chance to ask questions during the live Q&A. And in addition, as a VIP, you would get lifetime access to the challenge trainings and recordings of the daily coaching calls. Plus, there's some additional bonuses to help you achieve your career goals. So even if you can't attend the live challenge next week as a VIP, you'll be able to go through all the trainings, recordings of the coaching calls, and the bonuses when it's convenient for you. And you won't have to miss the opportunity to create your own personalized career game plan because you really need it. We want you to have it. Now, the VIP experience is currently available for the early bird price of $67, and then it'll go up to $97 once the challenge begins on Monday, the 19th. But here is the special opportunity for you. For the next hour, only for the next hour, you can upgrade to the VIP experience for just $1 by using the special coupon code $1. And my team will be putting that into the chat. But you have to upgrade within an hour after this call ends because this special offer expires after an hour. So you simply go to careermasterychallenge.com right now to sign up for the challenge for free. Then on the next page, use the coupon code $1. So that's numeral 1, the number 1 and the word dollar all together, $1 to upgrade to the VIP experience. And I want you to have some skin in the game, even if it's just $1, so that you use and benefit from the challenge and VIP experience, because I know how valuable it is and I want you to take advantage of it. So if you want to take the hassle out of creating your career game plan, then the Career Mastery Challenge is perfect for you. It's an opportunity for you to let me guide you through step by step in creating your career game plan in just 5 short days. And then you can start achieving your career goals with clarity and confidence. And I want you to go ahead now and sign up, join the Career Mastery Challenge, use the coupon code $1 to upgrade to the VIP experience, and don't let this golden opportunity pass you by. So please do it now before the the code expires in 1 hour. And now with that, let's go to some Q&A. I think that there are some questions.
Yeah. So here we go. There was
Okay.
one.
There's one right here from Shelley Fielding Levac. How can I break through into the director/C-suite when my resume does not show that I have all the prerequisites? Varied experiences in healthcare, including mid-management and leadership. I guess Shelley must have varied experiences.
Shelley, can you just jump in and just say, confirm, you've got varied experiences in healthcare management, including mid-management and leadership. Is that right? Or that's not what's needed? Let's assume that's the case. Yeah. I'm always actually, well, I'll just say a couple things. One is, I think that there's a lot of people sometimes, I don't want to be gender, make a gender, whatever standard statement, but I tend to find it's women who will say, here are all the prerequisites. Once I've done all of these things, then I'm allowed to apply. And I must say, I knew a lot of men who just basically said, look, I've got 6 out of the 10 and 2 others that you haven't thought of, right? In terms of, things that I think are relevant, and I'm going to go for it. So that would be what I think.
Shelley says she does have them.
She does have them, right? So I think there's a few things. I think being clear about what you've done and how that relates to, whether it's C-suite or director experience, and why, how that actually comes to the fore is one thing. So you being able to take your existing resume, make the link. So that would be one thing, just being able to discuss and explain to somebody. 2, I don't know the extent to which I would certainly be looking at your map of contacts, of informational contacts, of understanding what are the organizations you'd be interested in. And I don't know if you're only interested in your own organization or whether you're also open to others, but the extent to which you have a very clear view of who's looking right now and where the opportunities might be. It may not be in as large an organization that you're in. There may be opportunities in smaller organizations. Remember, that's another way that I've seen people certainly be successful, is to say, instead of staying in the big organization, they go to kind of new ventures, et cetera, and actually jump in at, given their experience, they can add a lot of value and can jump in at quite a senior point. And then I suppose, those are the 2 things that immediately spring to mind in terms of that. And then finally, being reflective of what are the specific experiences that you don't have, and are there ways for you to, maybe not get it fully, but actually at least show that you have skills in that area. I mean, I've had situations where I haven't had big teams work for me, but as a board member, I've had sort of, management teams underneath me where I've been able to sort of point to my management skills and then get sort of testimonials from people on how I was as a manager. So there's ways to kind of circumvent and so, obviously this will, there's lots of getting into anyone's specific questions, but those are 3 things I would be doing, with a big emphasis on making sure that I had a really good network of people who are in those situations, and having kind of informational meetings with them about what's involved.
I would just emphasize that last point. My impression, although here I am practicing law without a license, because I'm the one of the 2 of us that's not on any boards.
No.
But I've investigated enough to know that a lot of it is about getting into the club. And so just getting known by the people in those circles. And those informational kind of conversations, I think, are going to serve you really well. Because you need to be sponsored, have people know who you are, and say, yeah, she'd be really good. Yeah. Awesome. Should we go to the next question?
Yeah.
I hope that helps, Shelley.
I like G. Lee's, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right, G. Lee's question. Do I shoot for the next opportunity based on my strength and experience, or something I'm interested in? That's a tricky, that's an interesting one, right? So next, we all have situations where the next opportunity, the obvious thing given our background is to do X, but I'm actually interested in Y. So May, what would you say to that? I've got some thoughts, but what would you say?
Yeah. So I'd say 2 things. One is The word "the next opportunity." Um, in a slightly different context, I like to invite us to think about your career as a series of opportunities.
Yeah.
So, if the next opportunity that's the logical next step from where you are now fits on that path and aligns with that bigger picture of where you want to go, then it could be a really good experience, even if you're not wild about it. And you don't have to do it forever; it's just your next role. But maybe it gives you an experience that you need to collect, as Catherine was saying earlier, in order to qualify. It's a prerequisite for something else down the line that you want. Um, and and it's on the other hand, what my father said to me is you always want to be leveraging your strengths and experiences that you have when you're choosing your next role, because you want to be able to have some kind of foundation to stand on to be successful in something new. So he was saying to me, yeah, you go when you want to do something new, it's sort of like sailing, it's tacking. You don't necessarily jump from investment banking all the way to healthcare leader, right? You might go, oh, okay, investment banking, let me do some investment banking healthcare client coverage, and then from there get into healthcare senior. Or maybe I go from, do you see what I mean? So I always like leveraging your strengths and experiences, but don't let those be a restriction to what you might want to do, because you can develop new strengths.
Yeah.
Just don't go into an area that is clearly something you hate and is a big weakness of yours that you could never shore up no matter how long you work on it.
Yeah.
Catherine, what do you think?
And similar, like, just to build on what May said here, I think if you see yourself in the area that you're interested in, then you need to, if that's where you ultimately want to be, then you need to build a path to that. And that the right thing might be to jump now, depending on your background, or you might be able to get into it with more certainty or at a better level or with a more interesting job if you get to a certain level on what you're doing with your strength, where your strong suits are. So I think that's we need to probably know a little bit more about the specific opportunity and where you're at in your career. But hopefully you're getting what we're saying, which is that I really like what May said. Think of your experiences or your next roles as a continuum, and are they heading towards something where you could be really excited about the final outcome? What you don't want to be is just kind of continuing on and just doing more and more of something that you're actually not interested in, right? But if you can use that to get, to segue into that at a more senior or more certain level, then you should think about that.
Great. Thanks for a great question. Iris is asking, what is the best way to recognize the transferable skills and strengths to help you transition? Ooh, that's a nice question. You have thoughts on that, Catherine?
Well, I think if you're in it, by the way, I've got lots of thoughts on any career transition. And it's interesting when you talk about your transferable skills, and it's great that you're thinking about them, right? In terms of whatever they might be, how can I transfer them? This isn't answering your direct question, but the critical thing I will say at the beginning of any career transition to another firm, another location, another career, whatever it might be, I think a lot of people spend sometimes too much time focusing on trying to get up to speed with the work and getting to know the institution or whatever it might be, or the work in depth, versus getting to know the people around you that you're working. You will spend so much more. Your time will be spent so much more efficiently if you get out there and just start talking to people with informational meetings. I'm new. This is what I'm hired to do, or this is what I'm going to do, and learn from them what is valued in this new job. What are the outcomes they're looking for? What kind of people do well? What are all of that kind of stuff. And then you're in a really good position to say, okay, now I know what people are looking for. These are the 3 of my 6 transferable skills. These are the 3 I'm really going to major on, because this is what people are looking for. And no matter what you might feel like you've got a good sense of it. We all sort of have a good intellectual sense of what probably is important. I guarantee you will learn more things about what is actually important on the ground by spending your first X weeks, few months really being diligent about making sure that you go and have conversations with people. I think it's, there was a book, The First 90 Days or something,
Yeah.
focused on that. I have had a few different career transitions. It is it took me a while to learn that. I didn't do that the first time. And now it's the first thing I do is the list of people I need to go and talk to, and do it as early as I possibly can. And then think about how you position and showcase and, promote your key skills. May, I don't know what you would say.
I agree with all of that. And on figuring out your transferable skills, one of the things that I found really helpful is sometimes we don't know exactly ourselves. We don't see our own special strengths as clearly as others might because we're just too close to it. And oftentimes, your special strengths that are the most transferable may well be the things that you take for granted. You do it so naturally that you don't even
Yep.
think it's a thing. So, an additional thing as you're going and talking to people is you may also want to talk to some people who do know you well and find out from them what they see as your best strengths and skills. And that might help you triangulate on what those best strengths and skills are that might help you transition.
And by
Yeah.
the way, I assumed in your question that you were already into a new role and you're wondering how to be successful at it. What I thought perhaps maybe what you meant was, or I realized afterwards, maybe what you meant was, I want to transfer into a new role. I've got these skills. How can I use those skills and make the case that they're transferable and get the new job? In that case, then I think everything May said is right. And I would also try and be as specific as you can. If for example they say, here are the 5 key attributes of someone who's successful, or what we're looking for this role, to the extent that you can give the concrete examples of what you've done that links to those specific skills, experience, whatever it is, that's what you want to do. And you can define it. You don't need them to define. You can say, actually, you might not realize this, but it was a key you had to be good at building relationships to do this aspect of my job, even though that's maybe not what you see from the surface or see from the CV. And let me explain why. Boom.
Yeah. And that advice applies to Shelley's question as well from the beginning. Yeah. So I hope that helps you, Iris. And team, are there any other questions, or
I
should we
think
do
I see one, Lindsay. Oh, sorry, can I jump in on one, May, that I see? Lindsay's, I think that's really interesting. What if my game plan changes? What if I'm not sure what my situation will be later in the year? And I think there are lots of times where you need to stay flexible for lots of reasons, right? And I think then, almost personally, I would say pulling back, kind of doing a few war games of different scenarios, what might happen, and then thinking about, okay, I know certain aspects of what I want my career to look like in 5 years' time, even if it's simply I want to be working in an organization with decent people where I like them. In fact, that in and of itself is a decent goal, right? And so you can have other aspects of it, but that thing it'll help you frame the different sort of scenarios that might come through. And don't feel obliged to act or even have concrete tactical plans. If you feel like the ground shifting underneath you a bit, you have time to pull back, but you should probably have a start to having a framework of where you think you might want to go will help you as choices might come your way, or situations might come where you will have to make decisions, or you may want to make decisions. May, I don't know if there's anything you say.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And I see we've got 1 minute to the top of the hour, and I want to thank everyone for joining me and Catherine today. Thank you, Catherine, for giving such
Pleasure.
advice. And I invite you to please join me for the free Career Mastery Challenge, and then to upgrade to the VIP experience for just $1. And I think there was a question about that. Yes, the VIP experience is just $1 for the next hour. And so do it now if you haven't already, because you only have an hour. And, the Career Mastery is designed to give you a proven structure, support, and accountability so that your career game plan will be a reality and you can stay focused on your goals and not let them get lost in your day-to-day. So I look forward to seeing you in the Career Mastery Challenge. And thank you again for joining me and Catherine. This is so wonderful to have you here, and we wish you really well in your career.
And May, can I just say, if to the extent that we weren't able to hit some questions, I can see a couple of really interesting questions. I'm assuming if they sign up for the Career Mastery Challenge, there may be scope for them to actually, repeat the question to some extent, and that might be able to be addressed a bit there. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that would be for the VIP experience. So
Yeah.
if you have questions that weren't answered and you are at all interested in creating your career game plan, join the free challenge and then upgrade to the VIP using the coupon code $1, which is right here. And there's a live Q&A every day, and so you can get all your questions answered there. All right. It's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.